Okay, so let's start the recursion. Okay, first go into file, start a new Java file. Let me make this a bit larger. Okay. Okay, so in this chapter, we will learn the recursive. Okay, so let's first we talk about what is a recursive method. Okay, a recursive method is the method who calls itself directly or indirectly. What it means? So for example, we have a method m. Okay, if inside this m and I call myself. Okay, so this is a recursive method because the method calls itself directly. Okay, so the other one is like, for example, I have m1 method. Inside this method m1, I call another method m2, and in my method 2, okay, and I call m1. Okay, so this is a recursive method. It's called, the method calls itself directly. This is a recursive method. The method calls itself indirectly, because when you call the method 1, inside the method 1, you need to call method 2, and when you go to method 2, you call method 1 again. So which is means m1 call itself indirectly. m2 is also call itself indirectly. So that is a recursive method. Okay, so and then we talk about the very famous problem can solve by the recursive method is factorial number. Okay, so like we already know, 0's factorial equal to 1 as is defined, and 1's factorial equal to 1 times 0's factorial and 2's let me see this one. Okay, so n factorial equal to 1 times 2 times 3 times ... times n minus 1 and times n. Okay, so this is how we define the this is how we define the n factorial. Okay, so but you part already noticed that. So n 1 plus 1 times 2 times 3 all the way to times n minus 1, that is n minus 1. Okay, so n minus 1 factorial. So your n's factorial could be written as n minus 1 factorial times n. So this is how we using the this is a recursive method to define the factorial number. Okay, so now let's working on the exercise. Okay, so let's start our public class lesson 1. Okay, this is our recursive. Okay, so public static void main. Let's first have this main methods. Okay, now let's write recursive method to solve this factorial number. Okay, this is how we write factorial numbers function. Okay, so like we said, as is defined, okay, if n equal to 0, okay, so 0's factorial will be 1, okay, else we will return what? the nth factorial can be written as n times n minus 1's factorial. Okay, so this is how we write the recursive method to calculate the factorial. Okay, now let's testing it. Let's test in the factorial 4. Factorial 4 will be 1 times 2 times 3 times 4, which will be 24. Okay, so let's compile. Okay. Yeah, let me give the another name. Okay, so okay. Since I already have a file named, so save. Okay, so let's run it. Now you can see you will get the 4. Okay, now let's when we write a factorial, when we write the recursive method, you need to be careful. Okay, so first, since the method will call itself, okay, so you make sure it's not called itself forever. So you need a base case. The base case is a case, and you will return something, and this base case will be guarantee your program will be determined at some points. Okay, since this is a recursive method, you also need to have this recursive call. Okay, so recursive call means inside the method call itself directly. Okay, so this is recursive call. Okay, now you may ask, why this base case is important? Now let's see, what if we comment this base case? Now let's see what happened. Okay, so when you compile, you can see, let me see. Okay, so your program will be, let me run this again. You can see that. Okay, so you can see you got this stack overflowed error. Why? Because when you're trying to call, this will be runs forever. If you trying to call the factorial 4 will be let me write down this here. Okay, if without base case, what will be happened? If we are trying to calculate the factorial 4 equal to 4 times factorial 3, right? Okay, so factorial 3 equal to 3 times factorial 2, okay? And the factorial 2 equal to 4 times 3 times 2 times factorial 1, okay? So factorial, then this will be equal to 4 times 3 times 2 times 1 times factorial 0, okay? So since if we don't have a base case, okay, factorial 0 this will be 4 times 3 times 2 times 1 times 0 times factorial -1. 0 minus 1, that will be -1. And this one will be goes forever. Okay, so if I don't have this one, will be cause a stack overflow. It runs forever. Stack overflow error. Okay, so that's why when you write a recursive method, make sure you always have this. Base case. To that will be guarantee your program will be end at some points. Okay, so. Okay, so now let's working on some exercise. Okay. Okay, we got this question from the textbook. So, first question is we ask you to, let me make this. Okay, we ask you to write a recursive method. We ask you to write a recursive mathematical definition for compute the positive integer for, okay, so yeah, calculating the 2 to power of n, 2 to power of n, for integer number. So for example, this one will be, yeah, we are trying to ask you to write a method is, let's call this is, the method is power of 2. These methods will be when you pass n, and this, this is basically, let me write this here, okay. Okay, we ask you to implement a method called the power of 2. This one will be return what? This one will be return, this one will be return 2 to power of n, but we ask you to write a recursive mathematical definition for this one. So we know 2 to power of n could be written as the mathematical definition will be 2 times 2 to power of n minus 1. Okay, so and we always know this is for n greater than 0. Okay, so 2 to power of 0, which is 1. Okay, so for n equal to 0. This is the definition. Okay, so this is a definition. So one of your homework we ask you to do is we ask you to implement this power of 2, these methods, the recursive methods to calculate the power of 2. Okay, so this is first homework you need to do. Okay, the second one is we ask you to write a recursive definition for to compute x to power of n for the positive integer n and the real number of x. Okay. Okay, so this one will be what? Will be like for example, let's call this is power of x. Okay, so this one we ask you to pass 2 parameters. One is integer n, another is double x. Okay, and what we ask you to do is, like for example, when we trying to calculate okay, so for example, we try to calculate the 2.5 to power of 2. Okay, so this one we ask so in this case is your x is 2.5 and your n is 2. Okay, so we get this is okay, this one what is returned. So since we ask you to write this in a recursive mathematical definition, so we know x to power of n can be written as x times x to power of n minus 1. Okay, that is for n is okay, for n is not equal to 0. Okay, so and the base case will be, so when if the n equal to this one, yeah, x to power of 0, this one will return 1 for n equal to 0. Okay, so this is the second homework we ask you to do. So what we ask you to implement is we ask you to implement these methods, public static. Since this one will be return a double value, power of x, you pass the integer n and the power of x. Okay, so make sure every time you implement the method, make sure you always have this base case and recursive case. Okay, so the last question is we ask you to write a recursive mathematical definition to compute okay, let me put this in a new line. 1 plus 2 plus ... plus all the way to n minus 1 and then plus n for a positive number of n. Okay, so we ask you to implement like a recursive method called static. This one will be return an integer. We call this is sum and give you the n. I want you to implement this one. Okay, so make sure when you write the program, okay, recursive program, you always have to write the recursive definition for the problem. And then when you implement that, your you need to have the base case and also have this recursive call. And after you implement the method, after you implement all that method, I want you guys to testing your program here. Okay, so this is for the first exercise. Okay, so when you finish, I want you guys to submit your Java code. And also, wait a second, since I didn't give it, let me first make sure this can be returned. Okay, return 0. You need to change this on your program. Okay, since okay, so return 0. Okay, so okay, I want you to submit the Java code and the screenshot of the running results. So the running results should be I need you have the screenshot should be have part of your code and the running results and the output. Okay, so that's all.